Welcome to Learn at Home with VIA. My name is Dr. Allison Urechko, and I teach career applications and computer science for Hazleton Area School District. I am so excited to participate in VIA's Learn at Home program, and I hope that I could share some knowledge with you that you could put to use right away. Today's lesson focuses on applying for and interviewing for a job. This lesson can benefit not only high school students, but anyone who is looking to brush up on some application and interview skills. I'm going to cover the basics of filling out a job application, writing a cover letter, creating a resume, and answering some basic interview questions. Let's get started by talking about some tips for filling out a job application. Depending on the company in which you are applying to, some companies offer online applications and others offer applications that must be filled out by hand. The benefit to an online application is that you could type information using your computer and have access to spell check and the backspace button on your keyboard for when you make mistakes. An online application offers applicants a much easier route to looking professional and perfecting your work. But I want to focus on some tips for applications that must be filled out manually. My first, and maybe my most important suggestion, is to ask for 2 copies when you're obtaining the application. Asking a potential employer for an extra copy shows the employer that you care about submitting your best work and that you are already thinking ahead so that you do not have to make a second trip back to the business if you make a mistake. Since you should fill out the application in black ink, I suggest you make a copy of the application to use as a practice copy and then carefully transfer the information to one of the original copies using a black pen that will ultimately be submitted to the employer. Let me share my screen to go over some additional tips about filling out an application for employment. Even though all employment applications are not exactly the same, the parts of an application are relatively standard. I want to use this document to kind of go through some of the parts of an application and answer some commonly asked questions to give you an idea of what you should do when you're filling it out. I'm not going to fill it out with you, but more so answer questions related to the sections. The first section is usually your personal information. It's asking general questions such as your name, your address, your cell phone number, your home phone number, and your email address. My biggest takeaway from this section is to use a professional email address. Make sure you're using an email address that maybe has your name in it, such as your first name dot your last name, or your first initial and your last name, more so than other words that maybe describe you in other ways. You want to use an email address that makes you look professional. There may also be a section that asks for information about the job. Some questions you may or may not know the answer to, but you want to do your best when you're filling it in. Sometimes there's a question on there asking you what salary you want, and this question may seem a little bit awkward. You can fill this in, not so with an amount like it's asking for, but with words such as minimum wage or comparable to other employees, especially if you're not really sure what the salary is like at the place you're applying to. A section that you'll definitely find on the employment application is education. And depending on where you are in your life, you may or may not have answers to all of these questions. It's okay to leave the areas that do not apply to you blank. But if you do have information, you want to fill it out as best as you can. So for example, if you're in high school now, you want to make sure that you're looking up the correct address of your high school, putting the dates that you've attended, and underneath degree, maybe you didn't get that diploma yet, but you can put anticipated graduation date, June of, and then the year. Or if you did get the diploma, you could simply list it as high school diploma. For your major course of study, a lot of times for high school, we tell our students just to put that you're on an academic path or you're on a vocational or a technical path. It all depends on what particular school you go to. And you could always ask your guidance counselor for help with some of these questions. If you do have college education or other education as listed on this application, feel free to put that on there and fill in the sections as best you can. Another section that you would find on an employment application often asks for skills. And I always get a lot of questions about this because some students will say, I don't have any skills, or what do they mean by skills? I don't know what they want me to put. But this is a great place to put information about any other courses or certifications you may have. If you have computer skills, you could list them here. So you might want to list things such as proficient with computer skills, such as Microsoft Office. Or if you've been trained in a certification, you could list trained in CPR, trained in first aid, trained in lifeguarding. You may also list if you have a valid driver's license, because you may be applying for a job that needs the use of a car. The references section always seems to be a little bit tricky for students. The big takeaway here is that you want to select the appropriate references. You should never really use a relative as a reference, because the assumption is that your relative is going to say something nice about you no matter what. The best people to select are teachers, neighbors, coaches, or family friends that you've formed a relationship for longer than just a few months. You want to select people that can give an overall perspective of why you would be a good fit for the job in case they are called. The second page of this application has 3 areas to list your previous experience. But some people say, what do? I have no previous experience. And sometimes that's the hardest part about filling out an application. I always say the hardest part of getting your first job is listing this information. You have yet to prove your worth as an employee in some sort of workplace setting. If you have no experience working at all, you could always fill in at least one of these spaces with some sort of volunteer experience. But you do want to make note on your application that it was not official employment and that it was more so as a volunteer. If you do have prior work experience, I suggest making sure you fill out all of the sections as accurately as possible. And when you're listing a reason for leaving a job, you want to make sure that regardless of the reason you left that job, the reason you're listing is positive. So you may want to put something such as seeking new opportunities, or if you're currently still employed at that job, you can simply put currently employed. As you go through, you want to make sure that you're filling out all of the sections all the way down to the very end, and don't forget to sign and date your sections. Getting a job can be stressful. It takes a bunch of work ahead of time, but it's really rewarding as we go through. Next, let's take a look at how to write a cover letter. The purpose of a cover letter is to sell yourself to the employer. This document allows you to tell your story in a conversational tone. It's important to use the elements of a business letter when you're typing your cover letter. Let me share my screen and go over some parts of a cover letter. The key to a good cover letter is making sure that it's not only typed correctly, but that it's in a business letter format. So a business letter format always starts by writing the return address, which is your name and your address, so that the person reading the letter knows who you are and how to get in touch with you. This is just a basic return address, but if you wanted, you could make a fancy letterhead in this part. It's also important to add the date that you're writing the letter or typing the letter, and the address of the person who you're writing the letter to. So in this case, this is just a fictional address, but we have not only the person's name, but we have their title, Mr., Mrs., Doctor. You want to make sure that you're getting their title correct. If you're ever unsure, you can look up this information, or you can even call a business and ask for a person's title. We also have the title of their job. So in this case, the example is Human Relations Manager, and the address of the business. Often you'll see a cover letter that's written out to whom it may concern. That's okay, but you should really make it more personal. So it's important to figure out who it is that you are typing this letter to and address it properly. So in this case, Dear Mr. Parsons, and we used a colon because a business letter does use a colon rather than a comma as part of its format. It is a more formal letter, so you're using a colon instead of the comma in a more personal letter. You can make your letter as long as you need to get your story across, but there should be 3 basic paragraphs. So this is simply just a basic letter. In this first paragraph, I'm telling the person how I heard about their job. So for example, in response to your advertisement in the Standard Speaker, I would like to apply for the cashier position at Montage Mountain Ski Resort. I covered where I heard of it and the job I'm applying for. I go on to state that the qualities you need are a close match for the ones that I have developed in my career. The next paragraph allows me to kind of state some of those qualities. This is just a short version, but it says, enclosed with this letter is a copy of my resume. Make sure that if you're writing that sentence, you're actually putting a copy of your resume into your envelope. And then you could say what those qualities are or why you're a good fit. So in this case, I have almost 1 year of experience as a cashier at Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm sure that my skills would be of use to you right away. So you're saying that I've worked as a cashier before, I know what a cashier does, and now I could work at your business as a cashier as well. If you have no experience, you could put something as far as you being a student as your experience. Think of school as your current job. You could say that in your business class, you learned skills such as counting money that could be helpful when being a cashier, or something along those lines. Finally, the third paragraph, or the final paragraph, depending on how much content you put in that middle section, is going to acknowledge that you would be a great fit for their company, and it's going to politely ask for them to call you for an interview. So in this case, I am confident that my knowledge and abilities would be of value to your company. I would like to request a few minutes of your time to discuss my qualifications. If you have any questions in the meantime, please do not hesitate to call. You're reiterating the point that you would be a great fit for the company, and you are asking them to reach out to you to hopefully give you this job. Finally, the letter ends with what's called a signature block. Simply just end with sincerely and a comma. Leave space to physically sign your name when you're done printing out the letter before you submit it. Actually sign it with a signature in blue or black ink. And then below that would be your name typed so that they can, if they can't read your signature, they can see your typed name. Finally, right here, I have the word enclosure. That simply just means there's something else in the envelope. And if you remember earlier in the letter, I wrote enclosed with this letter is a copy of my resume, and it allows the reader to know, look for something else that talks about me or sells me as a potential applicant in your business. It's really important that you're typing this letter carefully and making sure to check for any mistakes and use spell check to make sure that you're submitting your best materials. Next, I want to talk to you about creating a resume. I often find that students feel like creating a resume is the most difficult part to the job application process because they're not really sure exactly what to put in the bulleted lists that highlight all of the activities and sports or clubs that they've participated in throughout their life. What's important though is that you take it slow and really think about what have you participated in and try not to leave anything out. A good rule of thumb is to try to keep track of these things or ask your friends or your relatives, hey, do you remember me participating in something that I may not be remembering right now in order to come up with this list? Let me share my screen and we'll go over some parts of the resume. This is simply just a generic resume, and sometimes typing the resume and formatting the resume can be hard. There's some templates out there that you could use, or you could simply follow along with this and try to type in different parts. The top of your resume should always list your name larger than everything else to prove that this is your resume and to show somebody, I want this job. You should also see your address and phone number and email address in this section so that people know how to contact you. It's kind of a myth that you need an objective section in a resume. You don't really need to put an objective section, so you can eliminate that if you see that on other examples. You should highlight your education. Right now, we know that you have at least high school experience. You shouldn't go back further. You don't need to list your elementary or your middle school. If you are in college, it is important to continue listing your high school information until you graduate college. After you graduate college, you could start to eliminate that high school information as well and only focus on your college education. If you go to a vocational school, it's really important in this section to also list any trades or certifications you may have earned while at that vocational school. So here you could just see in my example, I have the name of the school, the town that the school is in, and the years that I attended there. So in this case, you would think of your freshman year when you started attending there until now if you've yet to graduate. And I've just noted here, high school diploma, anticipated graduation, June 2020. Maybe you've moved throughout your high school years and you went to one high school for 9th and 10th grade and another high school for 11th and 12th grade. You should still put both of those high schools. Make sure to put the more current high school first and then list the first high school you went to second. In the experience section, if you remember from the cover letter, I said that I worked at Dunkin' Donuts. So I put here experience from my Dunkin' Donuts. I listed the name of the company I worked for, the city it was located, what I did, and the years in which I worked there. I still currently work there, so that's why I have June 2018 to present. This is important because if you are still currently working at a job, all of the bullets below it should use verbs that are in present tense. If you are no longer working at a job, you should use verbs that are in past tense. So in this case, you always want to have a bulleted list of things that you did while you were working in that field. You don't ever want to have just one bullet, so try to come up with multiple tasks that you completed while you worked there. So in this case, I was responsible for interacting with customers by taking orders, collecting money, and delivering food items. I maintain a professional working relationship with management and staff, and I train new employees within the role of cashier. Again, if I didn't work there anymore, I would say maintained professional working relationships and trained new employees in past tense. If you don't have work experience, you can eliminate that section and simply go right to volunteer experience, or if you have both, you can list your volunteer experience. So here I put that I was a volunteer in my fictional resume at the Hazleton Animal Shelter. I volunteered there for 2 different summers, June 2016 to July of 2018. I assisted the director with daily tasks to care for the animals, clean cages, and provide food. I answered phone calls and greeted visitors at the front desk. I'm coming up with a list in this case, past tense, saying what I did while I was there. You may want to put an area to list achievements. Achievements would be examples such as winning an award at your school, in this case, getting Student of the Month. Maybe you won an award for the highest math average. Maybe you won a sports award. Maybe you won an award in one of your classes. You could also put personal achievements that don't happen in school, such as Eagle Scout in this case of this example. There should be a section listing the activities you participated in. And again, you don't want to put stuff from years and years ago. You want to put recent activities or activities you're still participating in, but put as best of a list you can. So in this case, if you're just a member of an organization, you might want to list Future Business Leaders of America, Key Club, and SAD, all on the same bullet, but maybe in one of those you're the secretary or the president, so you might want to highlight that on a separate bullet. You could also list any organizations you're part of or any sports that you may have played throughout your career in high school. Finally, you can list your skills. So on the cover letter or on the job application portion of this, we talked about some skills. So you might want to just list basic computer skills, Red Cross CPR certification, Red Cross first aid certification, and even if you're bilingual, that's a great skill to put out there. People might not be looking for somebody who's bilingual, but if you have that ability, it's definitely something you want to promote about yourself. I saw a spelling mistake here, so again, before you print anything, before you finalize anything, you want to run your spell check and make sure your resume is perfect. Make sure you're printing it on high quality paper with high quality ink and submitting something to your employer that they want to read and shows you put the time and effort into making this a great resume that you're proud of. One of my biggest suggestions about a resume, and this is for after you've created your resume, anytime you do something new, anything it is, you get a new job, you get a new award, you join a new club, you finish being part of a club, you want to update your resume. You want to have an updated resume as often as possible. I like to save in my computer, I'll say April 2020, updated my resume. So I know that if I had to think back a few months, what did I accomplish in my life? I know I only have to think back as far as April before adding anything new or eliminating or changing anything from my resume. So now is a perfect time in your life to start creating this list of items and accomplishments so that when you're making your resume or updating your resume in the future, it goes smoothly and you don't have to think as hard about those items that need to be included to really highlight what type of person you are and why you would be a great fit for the job. Next, we're going to talk about some job interview questions and some good answers that you may want to start practicing at home. The final aspect that I want to talk to you about regarding applying for a job is the actual interview. There's so much leading up to getting the job that some people don't think about the interview until the last minute. It's really important to think about the interview and practice what you're going to say. Maybe you could talk with a family member and have a mock interview and practice some questions and some answers to get you more comfortable. It's also important to get your outfit ready the night before and make sure you have all the pieces you need cleaned and ironed so that you can look your best. When you're at the interview, you want to make sure that you're focused on your posture. If you're being polite, you want to make eye contact with all of the other people in the room and really make it seem like you want to be there. They want somebody who is friendly, somebody who is outgoing. Use this opportunity to show your personality. I know that you may be super nervous and this may be something you're really uncomfortable with, but a little bit of practice can help you get through those nerves and help you to do a great job at your interview. I want to go over 3 questions that are really common in interviews that sometimes catch you off guard. The first question is, tell me about yourself. This is often the first question asked in an interview. And it kind of throws people for a loop. What do they want to know about me? The interviewer wants to know you or get to know you as a person. They probably are looking for somebody who's friendly and outgoing to work at their business, and this is a great opportunity to answer that question. You also want to make sure that you don't really get off on a tangent and start talking about somebody other than yourself. I have a lot of students in mock interviews with me. They'll say, oh, I have one brother and 2 sisters, and my brother plays baseball, and I like to go to his baseball games. Now you seem to be talking about your brother. So you want to make sure you're focused on you. A great example of this would be simply just saying who you are and what you're involved with and what you like to do. So for instance, you could say something like, I'm a 12th grade student at Hazleton Area High School. I'm a member of the track and field team. In my free time, I like to spend time hanging out with my friends and family. One of my favorite things to do is travel both locally and out of state. And I've set a goal for myself to visit all 50 states as soon as possible. Just those simple answers can really let somebody get to know more about you. A second question is, what qualifies you for this job? This can seem simple. Well, I just want this job, right? You just want the job. How could you politely tell them, I'm qualified and I want this job? So simply saying you're a good fit for the job is not enough. You need to not only list your qualifications, but also give examples of those qualifications. You want to point out situations in which you did similar work as well. So your response could be something similar to, I'm a good fit for this job because I'm hardworking and dedicated. Regardless of the tasks asked of me at school, I assure you that my teachers would tell you that I put forth my best effort and I provide a high quality finished product. I could tell you that if I were to be hired, that I'm also a team player. I know that my experience of being on the track and field team has really helped me learn what it's like to be part of a team and the importance of success as a team. I can bring these skills to your company. Just taking the time to sit and pre-think about some of these answers and practice those answers will help you feel more comfortable in an interview setting. Finally, one of the most common interview questions, especially among high school students, is what is your greatest weakness? And this question is sort of a trick question. Many people think that they need to answer the question by stating something that is actually not a weakness. For example, you shouldn't say that you work too hard or that you're a perfectionist. Those aren't necessarily weaknesses. An employer wants to hear something honest. They want to hear that you're actually telling them a weakness acknowledging that weakness to the employer, and tell what you're doing to fix that weakness. So for example, you may say, my greatest weakness is time management. In the past, I've had trouble with getting assignments finished by the due date, and sometimes I've even submitted them late. But I've been working really hard with my teachers to come up with a solution. I got a planner and I mark everything down on the calendar in order to set deadlines for myself prior to when everything's due. In turn, I've actually been submitting some assignments early, and if not by the deadline. This calendar has really helped me to improve this weakness, and I'm working really hard to turn it into one of my strengths. These are just 3 examples of questions that you may be asked in an interview, but there's so many more potential interview questions. There's also so much more content related to getting a job and the application process that you could look for online. Learning may seem a little different right now, and I wish more than ever that I was at school with my students, but I still had a lot of fun creating this content for you. Thank you for inviting me into your home, and most importantly, thank you for joining me on Learn at Home with VIA. Have a great night.